Hello everyone, and welcome to the Barnes & Noble Monday Night Mystery event featuring Ava Glass and her new novel, Alias Emma, which is our July Barnes & Noble thriller pick. Welcome, Ava. My name is Catherine Steadman, and I am a thriller writer, New York Times bestseller, and Reese's Book Club previous pick. My novels are, I've done 4 so far. My first one was Something in the Water, Mr. Nobody, The Disappearing Actor. My most recent is The Family Game. I just, first of all, just going to say up front, absolutely love this book, read it in 2 days. And so it's my great honor to introduce Ava Glass, who, this is her first thriller novel. Ava has previously written as a crime journalist before moving into a YA series, which, so you have quite a few books to your name so far, but that was under her real name, which is Christy Doherty. So this is her first book as Ava Glass, and the first of a series of Emma Makepeace novels. This is Alias Emma. So welcome, Ava.
Hi, Catherine. Thank you so much for hosting this and being just wonderful to come out today and do this.
Thanks so much. Well, thank you for writing such an amazing book. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat from the first scene. It's like, it's so gratifying to find, and I know a lot of people already the quotes on your book are just amazing, but a lot of people are referencing James Bond, a female James Bond, and it's so fantastic to have this kind of character added to that lexicon. Could you tell us a bit more, just a kind of nutshell of the plot? No spoilers, obviously.
So I like to describe the book as it's a book about one woman trying to save one man on one night in London. That's sort of the elevator pitch, if you will. Yeah. And it's basically about a young intelligence operative, a young woman, and it's her first big assignment. And it is a simple sounding assignment to find the son of 2 Russian dissidents who live in the UK, who've been provided protection, and get him to safety because an assassination squad is hired to kill him as punishment for his parents. It's nothing he's done. He knows nothing about his parents' past life. He considers himself fully British. This comes from nowhere to him. And she's got to explain to him what's happening and get him to safety. And it turns into basically 12 hours of hell for them both as they try to get alone away from this squad across the city in the middle of the night.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, that is the thing. That is the propulsive aspect of it. It really is like a race against time for both of them. And she has a real challenge at the beginning of the book, doesn't she? Like even convincing him, as I imagine you would. You come from a background in the civil service in the UK. You were sort of recruited to what was it, sort of like you've sat in a lot of very interesting sort of research material that's helped you with this book. You've worked with and around real spies, so all of that sort of has helped you inform what you're writing, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think I like to say that my career has been less like a planned careful arc and more like a series of sort of accidents, and each accident kind of propelled me in another direction where I would then have a sort of another accident. And so when I moved, I was originally grew up in the US, but I moved to Britain a very long time ago in 2000 to work for a publishing house as an editor. Oh. And I loved that job and I was thrilled. And I did it for 5 years. And then the publishing company, as so often happens in my life, went out of business. It basically went under. And so I was at this crossroads of what to do next. And it was at that moment that an old friend got in touch and said she had taken a job working for the British government, and she was looking for somebody who could write about counterterrorism and not get scared. And she thought of me. And I think if somebody comes to you with that kind of a pitch, yeah, and at the time with nothing else to do, I felt like I had to take that. That felt serendipitous.
I having done a bit of research on this, I love the added element that you just come out of a breakup as well. So you were in that frame of mind of like, what is the most badass thing I can do right now?
Yeah. What would nobody expect for me to do at this moment?
And I'm going to work with spies.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. That sounds great. Yeah, I'll do that.
So your background then in crime journalism was the reason that they wanted you to come and sort of, what was it that they wanted you to sort of bring them into the 21st century a little bit in terms of visibility and that kind of thing?
Exactly. It was one of those things where it was a government top-down initiative. So the prime minister wanted it, so therefore the home secretary wanted it. And what they hadn't thought about is that nobody who would actually do it, so the spies themselves, they didn't want to do it at all. So I show up.
So they wanted, like, was it more of a social media presence for MI5 or for the civil service in general?
It was for spies to talk directly to the public. So basically MI5 and MI6 to tell the public what they're up to, which they hated. They hated it.
Oh, that's great. And it's funny because, like, in your descriptions, like your first, the first kind of spy that we meet other than Emma is her boss. And just the way you describe him, everything about real spies seems to be the opposite of trying to be public facing. It's you describe him as everything he wears is neither cheap nor expensive. It's nothing is memorable in that it's only unmemorable. These people are trying to blend in. And do you have like any stories that you used to sort of inform, you know, these kind of little nuggets in the book?
Well, I think the way I would tell it, I suppose, is the fact that here I am. When I worked for the government, I was surrounded by hundreds, thousands of people in this office building. And I was there for 5 years. And I never knew exactly who I was working with, who was a spy or who wasn't. The fact that someone is a spy is a state secret. And so they can't really say, hi, I'm a spy. So they would give you kind of hints to let me know, so that if they wanted me to know, if I was going too far and they wanted me to know, they really understood what they were talking about. They would just say, look, I can't tell you why, but you're wrong about this. And it would be the way they said it that would just make I'd get chills down my spine and think, oh my God, you are one. Okay. I haven't met you for one because you wear those funny shirts and, you know, you just look like someone's cousin. And then that was all of them. That was all of them.
That's fantastic. And these, in the book, there are these fantastic set pieces as they're racing across London. And then part of my mind while I'm reading it, knowing your background, is, you know, were there training events or things like that you were involved in or knew about that bear any relation to these moments in the book?
Well, I can say that I did take part in some of these training events that are never called, I always called them spy training, which is not what they're called, but we called things like emergency training or cross-governmental pan action, you know, like they're very careful in how they phrase it. But really it's where the military, counterterrorism, MI5, the police, the emergency services, they all get together and then they work through, like they literally blow something up and then they see how everybody reacts to it in a real life environment. They go somewhere.
So they actually blow up, say, like a factory, or?
Well, they'll build it first, or they'll buy one they'll use one that's already in really bad shape. They'll get permission to do it. They'll promise to clear the site afterwards so that they can do this. And then they'll literally blow it up and then see how everybody reacts. You know, how does everybody do their role? Or do they show up on time? And then they gauge how it would have gone in real life. So they gauge if the winds are blowing this way and it's a chemical explosion, you would have killed everybody in that village. Way to go, guys. You know, and so then they
that's fantastic. That kind of reminds me of that show Chernobyl, you know, where you're sort of kind of watching real time everything that would happen. That's so interesting. And when you sort of sat down you to make that transition between the YA to the thriller genre, was that sort of front and center in your mind? Did you think, I want to have a strong female character, I want to put her in these scenarios? Or did you just sort of sit down and it sort of just came out of you? Are you a seat of the pantser, or are you a planner in terms of?
This one, I've got to say, normally I'm a pantser.
Okay.
This was different because I was looking for a story. I was looking for something new to write about, and but I didn't have it. And I had worked with the spies. You know, it had been 5 years before by the time I came up with this idea, maybe even 8 years. So that was in my past. And I hadn't, you have to be really careful writing about spies if you actually knew them, there are rules. And so I knew I'd have to be very, very cautious. But then I was on this flight to New York in 2019 at the end of it, just before the pandemic started. And I was alone. And I had free wine, and I had all those movies and nobody to talk to. And I watched the only movie that interested me, I decided on this particular occasion after 2 glasses of wine, was Speed, because I hadn't, the one with Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock.
Yes,
And I hadn't
amazing.
seen it. Yes, a good
You've never
movie.
seen it? Oh my God, this
Well,
is
I hadn't
amazing.
seen it. I'd seen it in the day, like
Oh, right,
years
yeah.
ago, but not since. And I wondered if it was still good. Like, you know what I
Yes.
mean? Will I
Yeah.
still like it? Also, I know I'll like Keanu, but will I like, you know?
Yeah.
So I watched it, and it's just good. And I spent
Very
as
good. Yeah.
watching it as an author, like my
Mm.
mind, I was just so much in awe of the people who wrote it, because
Yeah.
the idea there's a bomb on the bus and they can't get off the bus. They can't drive the bus below 50 miles an hour. They don't have to do anything else.
Yeah.
All the suspension
It's
is
such a great
right
chamber
there.
piece. They can't get
Yes.
out of the situation
No.
until they fulfill the remit of the situation. There's
Yes.
no way out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you totally, that is, yeah, I see how that would link up with your idea for Alias Emma, because there is no way out of it. She's very early in the novel, I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but it becomes apparent that nobody is her. This is her job.
Yeah.
And everyone else is standing back. And yeah, and the only way out is through, really. And once it gets going and kicks off, yeah.
And for her, because she's young and she has had, you know, she's done jobs before, but they've been building up to this without telling her, because that's one of the thing about the spy world is they don't ever say, you know, you've completed task number 75. Like, you don't even know. And so she didn't know they were working up to her handling something entirely alone until she was doing it, because all the others, this is like, it's like graduation, right? For her, this is how it works. You don't work in a team out there. You know, you need
and
to
the
be able to do
previous
it
job
alone.
was, I mean, I don't think it's a giveaway because it starts with it, but is not that taxing on her.
Exactly.
Like, when she gets the call, she's like, thank God I've got something decent to sink my teeth into.
Exactly. And she's been begging for something more serious. They just she didn't realize this was it until it all kicks off.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. I love this story of the wine and Speed. This is perfect. This is because it has that fun dynamism that film has. So you had the idea, you came off the plane, did you just brainstorm? Did it all come out in one go, or were you sort of plugging away at it for a while? How did it?
This is usually I plug and I sweat and I suffer. Literally, it was an 8.5-hour plane ride. I watched Speed at the start. I didn't sleep. I wrote a pitch while I was on the plane. And when the plane landed, I emailed it to my agent from my phone. And then I stood in this endless immigration queue at JFK for like 2 hours. And then by the time I got to my hotel, she had emailed me back and she'd said, yeah, put this together. I think I could sell this. I think you should write this.
Right.
And so within that was nothing. That was, what was that, 12 hours from the idea, from watching. It was nuts. I've never done anything like that before.
I think I always think that's a sign of a good book. If you're so excited to get it down, I think that readers, it transmits to readers that excitement.
Yes.
But yeah, also I hats off to people who plan everything in advance before they allow themselves to do that. But yeah, I think I'm a pantser as well.
Are you a pantser?
Yeah. I'm like, once I get started, I have to keep going. Like, it's like a box set in my own head. I'm like, keep going.
Yes, but it gives a book, I think, and your books have this a little bit of an anarchic feel to it, because it's more unpredictable, because you're figuring out as you go along.
Exactly.
So we do as readers.
Yeah, and you're like, I don't know about you, like how you come up with endings, or if you have a couple that you're sort of toying with until you get there. But I love not knowing, like, in my mind, like, as you say, you write a pitch in your head, or you write a pitch, you know, to your publisher, but I love keeping the idea of how it's going to end just right until the very end and have like 3 options. Is that kind of how you go about it? Or do you just know from the get-go?
I very much lie to myself. So I'll have an idea. I know what it is. And then I'll write it and I'll think, oh my God, that's awful. So then I throw it out and then I try another until one really works. So I just keep trying.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah. What was your path into writing? Because obviously you've always been a writer. You've gone from crime journalism to YA. But what was the original pathway into YA? Was that through working at the publishing house? And
No, that was funny because I worked at the publishing house then, and it was nonfiction. And I actually didn't think I'd ever write fiction. I don't know why. It just never occurred to me that was my thing. I thought I was nonfiction all the way.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then I went to work for the government, and I was there for 5 years. And as interesting as it was, and as unusual for me as a job as it was to go from an outsider to being an insider, I had a lot of free time because when you work for the government, there's no overtime. Like I'd gone from publishing and journalism where you're just always working 24 hours a day to an 8-hour job. And that freed my mind. And so I think it was towards the end of that I started playing around with the idea of a YA novel. And it was solely because I read The Hunger Games and I was inspired to write a page turner. That was it.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah. I always think like if you have something else to do, then that's always when the ideas come. If you've got like something else you should be doing, and then writing is sort of like a little break from it. So yeah, that's when the ideas sort of come to you. Yeah. So what is your routine? Like, it sounds like usually you're a planner, but now that you're doing the Makepeace series, so I know the next one, The Traitor, is coming out in August, which is very exciting. I'm definitely looking forward to that now that I've read this one. What are you just a pantser now? Is that you? Are you converted?
Okay, so I make, in order to keep it going, because I like to write very quickly. So I come up with like a 5-page, almost an outline, but it's not really an outline. It's almost stream of consciousness story bit. Oh, yeah. It's like a long, very, vomity synopsis for myself. And then I kind of ignore it. And then I start writing when I can't bear not to be writing anymore. So then I write. But if I get stuck, then I go back to that synopsis and look at my original idea to see if there's something I can grab from there. So I think I am actually a centrist on the
So in between, a little bit of structure, but not too much to make you feel trapped. Yes. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. And do you sit down every day regardless and go like, I'm getting my 5,000 words or my 2,000 words?
Oh, that sounds so hard. Towards the end, I do, because I can't bear not writing when the story's all in my head. Yeah. But at the beginning, I'm incredibly forgiving to myself. And I'm always like, well, there are no words today. Perhaps it would be a good idea to clean the bathroom instead, or, do something else. So,
if you want to clean your house, then get a deadline.
Yes.
My house has never been so clean as when I'm on a deadline.
Yes, exactly.
So your process is kind of like gone from planner to centrist. Are you planning to, I obviously don't want to give any spoilers away, but this is set in London, but obviously spies go all over the world. Are you planning on branching out in different countries, or would that be too spoilery to tell us?
Oh, no, it's not too spoilery, I don't think. So The Traitor, actually, one of my ideas for it was to get Emma out of her comfort zone, because I think London might sort of be her safe place, as it were. Mm-hmm. So the Traitor takes her, well, I can give you a quick nutshell of it. Oh, yeah. So it's about an MI6 agent, an analyst, somebody behind the scenes, one of the office guys, who is killed. And it doesn't make sense. It's clearly an assassination, and they don't know why. That doesn't happen. It's not a thing that happens. And so it's not even like they figure out very quickly who did it, but then the why would they do that? Why would they send this message? So to get to the root of it, to figure out what's going on and to stop a bigger sort of diplomatic explosion, Emma will go undercover on an oligarch's yacht, and this will take her, a super yacht that takes her into the Mediterranean. And so she gets to go to some of the traditional places, I think, that spy fiction often takes us. So to Saint-Tropez, to Monaco, to Barcelona, which was an absolute joy to write.
That's amazing. Yeah, that sounds like the perfect beach read. That sounds very relaxing and fun, and yeah, very vicarious. Especially at the moment, like there's a lot of kind of relevant stuff, obviously, with the oligarchs' yachts all being I don't know what they're doing with them, just holding them somewhere.
Yes, exactly. I was really worried when I was writing it, because that's when they seized them all. And not that I don't think they shouldn't be seized, but I was thinking, oh, what does this do to my plot? Yeah. But a lot of them still have their yachts, so we're still okay.
Oh, right. Well, yeah, that's good. Like I couldn't help thinking when I was reading Alias Emma, the first book, I couldn't help thinking what an amazing screen adaptation it would be. Have you heard anything around that? Has there been any buzz yet about that sort of thing? Or
so the book is optioned. It's for television, and it is with a very good production company, which is called The Ink Factory, and they made a series called The Night Manager. Yes. They're very connected to the John le Carré family, they're great at spy fiction. And they were working on it until the writer's strike, which I completely support, began. And so we're hoping when that is hopefully resolved and in a way that is generous to authors everywhere.
Yes, exactly.
To all creatives, then it will get back
exactly. Well, we've got a double strike now. We've got writers and actors. So
yes, of course.
If they want anyone, then they're going to have to wait a bit and answer some demands to some degree anyway.
Exactly.
But that's fantastic. That sounds like the perfect place for it to be. The Night Manager was brilliant, and I'm sure they'll do an amazing job on it. Shall we segue into some Q&A questions? We've got some really good ones from people who've written in earlier, and I've got some good ones, so I'm gonna go for it.
Okay.
Actually, I'm going to start with the one I like the best.
Okay.
Okay. Will I? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I will. What do you have an interesting writing quirk? And if so, what is it? This is from Tammy West.
Interesting writing quirk. Okay. I suppose my weirdest writing quirk is that I quite like speed writing. I don't like to write slowly, so I limit the amount of time in the day when I can write. I try to do no more than 4 hours, and then in that 4 hours, and 3 is even better. I hate to say this, but in those few hours, I write as fast as I can and just felt through as much as I possibly can. And I find when I do it that way, it makes my mind fire in a different way than if I take all day and think about it. If I take the thinking out and just hit the keys, it's fascinating how differently my mind works.
Yeah, I have a similar thing as that. I do like to just not interrupt myself, because I think that flow state, that stream of consciousness, it goes below your, I don't know, the part of your mind that sort of is constantly checking itself or auto-correcting, whatever. And I genuinely think, like, you can catch a ball faster if you're not thinking about catching a ball. As soon as you start thinking about it, you're like, oh. And I find the same with writing. If you just allow your subconscious to deal with the next bit and the next bit and the next bit, and then you tidy it up. Like, I'm sure you're like heavily into your edits as well.
Exactly.
I like to have it all down, and then I can jig it all around.
A terrible first draft can be written very quickly if you just let yourself do it and take all the questioning yourself out of it.
You'll find like chunks that will remain exactly the same in the final draft, and you'll be like, I remember I wrote that. I was really I came out of a restaurant just to write that down or something.
And it might be the best part of the book, and you weren't even thinking about it.
Okay, we've got to squeeze in some more here. Right, what do you do if you have writer's block?
Okay, I have several weapons for this. And the first one is take a break. Just take a break from writing. Take a week off, a whole week. Don't let yourself even go to your computer, go for walks, clean the house, just do other things that you've been putting off. And hopefully at the end of that week, you want to get back to it. Some part of you is itching all that time and you're denying yourself. And then my second sort of trick is to move the timeline. So I'll either jump forward a week or 2 hours, 5, depending on the compression of the time. But jumping forward in time, it just seems to, a lot of times that gets rid of the problem. Sometimes it's the moment you're in, and jumping forward, it can move the pace, it can move everything. It does feel like a physical jump sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes you can really paint yourself into a corner, and easiest thing is just jump out of the corner, just get on to the next bit.
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant. I've got another question here from someone actually in the Q&A section of Who's Right Here Live. They're asking why the pen name. Just curious. Although I have to say before you answer this, love the pen name. So good. Is that her real name? That's amazing. But was there a reason that you chose it?
Yeah, it's funny because it's really odd because the pandemic sort of happened. Okay, so I came up with the idea and then the world kind of ended, and I wrote it in that year of craziness. And it felt completely different from anything I'd ever done before. It felt like a new start. And so I wanted a name to go with that, like just a fresh beginning. But also the other reason is that I had spent like 6 years as a YA author. Sort of my books were very popular internationally, and my YA books much more popular than they are where I live. So they're much more popular in Poland and France and Germany than they are in the UK for some weird reason. So I toured the world with a name literally nobody could pronounce, and I struggled with it, and I couldn't blame them. People with my real last name have trouble agreeing on how to pronounce it. We don't agree.
Is it Doherty? Is it Doherty?
It's Doherty, Doherty, Dougherty, like it.
Right. Yeah.
It's a tough one. And I just thought, why do I don't have to do that. I'm going to choose a name I think pretty much anybody in the world, wherever they're from, can easily say. And remember, also, it's nice to be memorable. So I decided to start fresh. And also, like, choosing your own name. That's pleasant. There's something nice and grown up about that. The name I would give myself if I were able to do that. So it was freeing. It felt freeing.
Yes, yeah. And it is a really good thriller name. Would even be a great title. So somebody is asking about Traitor, the Traitor, and whether it's a direct follow-on from Alias Emma.
It picks up, I think it's about 5 months after Alias Emma ends. If you haven't read Alias Emma, it's not one of those series where you have to read one book to read the next. There's not an arc, so you could comfortably read it if you hadn't read the first one. But it does definitely pick up, and we do get to see the same characters and see what happened next. Basically, if you did read the first book, I think you get
and for the people who have read the first book, this is a question from Marilyn Cohen. Do you ever consider writing a novel where Emma and Michael reconnect?
Well, okay, so there's a couple of problems with that. And the main reason that Emma and Michael go the way they do is because I know it's impossible. Like what they want is impossible. And I'm being careful with how I put it in case you haven't read the book yet. So it's very hard for a spy to see somebody, to be in a relationship with somebody who's not a spy, and especially given where they both are in the book. However, this is a small country, and I am writing in the third book now in the series. And there's a slight possibility, because I haven't written it yet, but I've got an idea that there might be a chance encounter that could change things. So we shall see.
Oh, that's great. Okay, cool. Now, who is your favorite character that you've created in any of your books, and why? Asks Rachel Donovan.
Oh, it's so tricky, but I think I'm torn because I have a deep and abiding love for Emma and her revenge quest and her just indomitable nature. She embodies so much of what I want to be. And I think there's a bit of fantasy writing happening when I'm writing her. I love it. And Ripley is somebody I want to be my boss. I want Ripley to tell me what to do in my life. I need that kind of calm, brutal, but polite guidance.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think my favorite character, really, the one that I love every time she steps on the page, is Martha. Every time she steps on the page, she lights up my day. And so she's my joy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's brilliant. Somebody's asking, how long did it take you to finish Alias Emma? I suppose there's two parts to that, I guess, in terms of how long did the first draft take, and then subsequent edits, from like that day on the aeroplane to the book coming out, I suppose. That's the question.
Yes. So I started writing it, I guess, just a few weeks after that flight, which was in October. And I finished it sort of early the next year. I think it took me about 4 months, and the first draft. And then obviously the edits went on. I just edited myself because I didn't have a publishing contract for it. So I edited it for a couple of months. My husband read it. He works in film and TV, and he's got a great eye. So I always get him to read things first. He's honest and supportive. So I don't feel like I'm going to fail here. I had great ideas, and then I sent it to my agent. And by then, so that didn't take very long. Actually, it was 2020. It's probably the whole thing probably took about 8 months, I suppose.
Wow, that's right. Yeah.
But it went really fast. It felt like, as you were saying earlier, there's something about when you have a good idea or an idea that feels right. It can sometimes go very quickly, as opposed to the normal writing process, which can be much longer.
Yeah, exactly. And also it's always so different when you don't have a publishing contract yet, because you're taking your fully formed idea to a publisher, as opposed to going through the process of like pitching an idea and all of that sort of stuff. Yes. So you're sort of like, it's kind of a publisher's dream if someone just turns up and they've got this fully formed idea and they've already edited it a bunch of times. It's like, it's kind of already you're on a sort of a bit of a fast track to like, you're halfway there. And as well as it being a series, did you already have, ideas, like a kind of thoughts for the next couple of books already sort of bubbling away then?
I had a short, like a paragraph that I knew about book 2, just a sort of an idea to see if they would like it. And that did become The Traitor. I already knew, because I've been fixated on oligarch yachts since since a vacation I took years ago, like 2005 or something ridiculous, a long time ago, where I went to the south of France. Which is amazing. And I sat on this was before I really thought about Russians or Russian oligarchs in particular. But I sat on the beach and watched these yachts, these enormous vessels just floating by, dozens of them. I'd never seen anything like that.
It's kind of a car park for them, the south of France, isn't it? It's just like,
exactly.
It's a harbour, and it's just rammed full of, they look like floating buildings. They're so big and shiny, and there's usually no one on them, or just one man cleaning them.
Exactly. Like, it's nuts. These are $50 million vessels, and it was extraordinary. And I did, how you do when I'm going, who's on that boat? Like, whose boat is that? And then that has been in my mind for ages. So I was extremely excited to get to research it and write about it and think about what it would be like to really spend, some time on them.
Yeah. I just thought another question that I really wanted to ask you while I was reading it was, did you at any point do the journey yourself across London?
Okay, so I don't think it's cheating so much as wise, but I chose a route I know pretty well from when I lived in London, and I lived in London for 8 years, and I was quite young, and often was out quite late at night, when getting back home can be quite tricky because the tube doesn't run after midnight, which many Americans may not know. It didn't back then. It runs a bit more after midnight now, but it didn't then, and getting home could be extremely thrilling on a variety of buses, walking across tremendous distances at great personal risk and so forth. And that had always stayed with me because there is something exhilarating about a very large city late at night. And that, so I knew I wanted that experience. I wanted to feel that emptiness and that sense that there are people all around you, but they're asleep. And also the route I did know quite well. And then my editor also happens to live right on the route. So she could completely check it for me. She literally walked it when I couldn't because of the pandemic. She literally went out and walked the route because she's indomitable and verified that it was okay and made a couple of small changes so that Londoners didn't write me angry letters. And that was the rest. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Great. Somebody in the chat box has asked Joan McCawhan. I'm so sorry if I've mispronounced this. She's asked, she said that I asked you if you were a pantser. That's what it sounded like. She says, what is that? They're usually with thriller writers or maybe all writers, but it's definitely, I feel like it's very genre specific to thriller writers. The pantsers are people who go by the seat of their pants. So they have an idea, an initial idea, and they might have a couple of definite plot points that they want to get in. But they'll sort of just flow between each of them. And then you get other people who have like a giant wall, not just a few of these that I have, but like a wall of these. And it will say every moment of the book, and they'll only start writing it as soon as they've got like a wall full. But yeah, I think we're both saying maybe we're not answers. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no giant wall of notes, definitely not. I just have my 4 handwritten panic pages in case I get stuck, and the rest I just wing.
Yeah. Let's see. Somebody's asking a tentative airing date for the television version of the book, but I'm guessing that's very much on hold until all the strikes are sorted. So
yeah, it does feel like we live in this age where everything's so unpredictable. It's the strikes do make these things so hard to predict. But honestly, if I were guessing, if it's going to get greenlit, I think it'll and if the strikes end by the end of this year, it would probably happen next year. I think it would almost certainly have to. So fingers crossed for next year, and fingers crossed for everybody, all those writers out there. I'm on your side.
Great. Well, that is a very good high note to end on, I think. Hopefully we'll be getting ALIAS EMMA on television next year. Fingers crossed. And just to remind everyone that ALIAS EMMA by Ava Glass is the Barnes & Noble July thriller of the month. And if you want to pop into store and grab a copy in store, then it will be on all the tables available for you. But it's been so great to talk to you, Ava. And thanks everyone for all your amazing questions. And yeah, would you like to say anything?
Thank you so much, Catherine. I've loved this conversation, and thank you so much to everybody for coming to listen. And I hope you like ALIAS EMMA. It would be fabulous to hear from you. I'm on Instagram and Twitter. Drop me a line, and God, just stay well. Keep reading, keep in touch.
Yeah, ditto. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and now Threads, obviously.
Everybody.
So, have a great afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for coming.
Bye. Thank you.